I'm Chastity Gunn, and I'm an English professor. And today I'm going to be walking you through a way that you can create interactive and engaging lessons that your students can do while we're in online instruction. One of the concerns, at least that I had, was how to create content that my students can interact with and it can feel like they are being guided and taught through the materials as opposed to just passive learning and students having to learn with the content on their own and maybe not engaging with it and retaining as much as I would have hoped. So I'm going to show you how I use Nearpod to do that. This will be a very broad example for how you can do this. If there are specifics that you want to learn about Nearpod, there are lots of YouTube tutorials that you can view that will teach you the ins and outs. So first, let's discuss what is Nearpod. So I have the website up here, and Nearpod is primarily used in K through 12 classrooms. It is a way to create engaging and interactive lessons. And so I use Nearpod before we even went to online instruction. I use it as a way to make lectures more engaging and more insightful. And so what I would do is when I was giving a lecture with PowerPoint slides is I would have some questions that I would embed throughout that lecture to make sure that students were attentive. And that was a way I could see what students were learning, what they needed more help with. I also enjoyed using Nearpod because I have taught populations of students that have had trouble with vision and they haven't had health insurance or the finances to be able to purchase eyeglasses. And so what I like about Nearpod is that if I'm in a classroom with computers, I can have each student work at a computer and they're able to see the content that we're doing. So here is Nearpod. And this is what the page looks like once you set up some presentations. And so I'm going to walk you through a presentation that I'm actually preparing for my classes right now. So I teach my students about certain words they should avoid in academic writing. And I don't want to just give them a list of words to not use. I want it to be interactive. I want it to be engaging. So when I create a presentation on Nearpod, I try to keep Bloom's taxonomy in the back of my mind. And I think about the different levels, and I want to try as much as possible to hit as many of those levels as I can when I'm creating a Nearpod presentation. So I don't want students to just be given information, but I also want them to take something away and be able to apply what it is that I'm teaching them. And so I also create my Nearpod presentations like I would in class activity. So I start with an open-ended question, how do you define academic writing? And so this right here is that open-ended question that students will answer when they're doing the Nearpod presentation. And then I have a title page, let students know, just remind them what they're going to be learning. And then I have uploaded a YouTube link of a lecture video that I recorded. And so there's that. And then after they watch the lecture video, I want to gauge, did they retain anything? Did they pay attention? And this helps them avoid being passive when they're learning. And so there's that open-ended question. Now, what I want to do is I've introduced them to the concept. They probably understand it at this point. Now I want them to apply it. So the way I'm going to do that with Nearpod is Nearpod will allow you to import slides. So here I have some slides that I have created in Google Slides, and there are a couple ways that you can import slides from Google into Nearpod. I'm going to show you one simple way. And so on the presentation, here it says upload files. And I'm going to click on my Google Drive, and it's going to connect to my Google account. And here I'm going to select that presentation that I've already created, those slides. And those are going to upload. It'll take a minute or so for it to upload. And once they upload, I'm going to convert those slides to be Draw It. So Nearpod has a feature where students can annotate on the slide. Now I keep the annotations very simple. On these slides, I'm only going to have students cross out the word that they should not use in academic writing based on the lecture video. I won't get too fancy like having them write on the slide or do any fancy markings or annotations, because I imagine that many of my students may not have the accessibility of a stylus or an Apple Pencil in order to do this. So just something very simple that they could do with their finger if they're using a handheld device. And so the way that I would convert this slide here is I would select the slide and then I would click Convert to Draw It. And that will give the student the ability to now write on that slide. And then after I have students just kind of mark through a couple of those slides, what I want to do is I want to add a slide in which I am now going to have students actually write a sentence in which they either remove a word that from the lecture video that they should have in academic writing, or have them, write a sentence that, displays academic writing. And so with Nearpod, you can add two types of slides. So there's content slides, and that's what comes up first. And so video is an option. So if you have a video or web content, you can add it that way. So when I add videos, I actually select web content and I just copy and paste the URL. And typically I'm linking to a lecture video that I have created. There are some other features on here like Field Trip, BBC Video, Nearpod 3D. I don't use those options. I primarily use the slide function and web content. I also use web content if I want to link to a Google Doc. Perhaps I have some notes or an activity that I want students to do as a part of the Nearpod presentation, and the web content feature would allow me to do that. If you want to talk to your students and you want them to hear your voice, you can also add audio. Now, activities is what I want, because this is where I'm going to do an open-ended question. And actually for me, when I do an open-ended question, it typically is some type of writing exercise that I have students do. Now, when I'm in face-to-face, I love to do time to climb because students love this. And what time to climb is basically just a quiz of multiple questions, and it's a race. And students, they get excited about this. They get into it. They feel really competitive. They're engaged. So I like it for that purpose. There's also matching pairs. You can do a quiz to check for understanding, fill in the blanks. There's some different things here that you can use. I have a paid account with Nearpod, so I have a few more features. But even the free account, you can get quite a bit just with that. So let's do the open-ended question. So I'm just going to type in a sample here. Okay, so write a sample sentence using academic writing. Sometimes when I've done in-person presentations, I may add a timer just to help students stay on track. But for a student-paced lesson or something that they would do online, I don't add a timer. You can add media, video, audio instructions. Also, if there's a video that you want them to watch right before they ask the question, you can add it here. If you want to give students the ability to verbally respond to their answers, you can select that here. So we're just going to hit save. Okay. So let's do a preview of what this looks like so you can have an idea. All right, so it's going to start with that open-ended question, and here you will see where the student has the question up here, and then they're going to write their response. And then there's the welcome slide, lets them know what it's about. Here's where they will watch the lecture video that's in a part of the lesson. And as you can see, these are the questions, and here's how they would annotate that slide. Okay, So now let's talk about, okay, well, how do I share this with my students? So you have a couple ways that you can do that. So I'm going to save and exit. So, there's a couple of ways you can do this. So one way is that you can give students a code and tell them to go to nearpod.com, type in this code. You also can click on link and you can add that in D2L. You can email that to students. I prefer to do embed because I try to have students click as few places as possible outside of D2L to make it less confusing. So here I would click copy and then I would paste that into D2L. So let me walk you through what that looks like in D2L. How you would do that. So you would go to, well, I go and you edit HTML and I click that button and enter embed code. And so I copy and paste that code right into that window, that box there. And I will show you what it looks like once it has been embedded. So this is what it looks like once it's embedded. So students would need to put their name in when they do the presentation. So another reason why I like Nearpod is because I have the ability to do a couple things. First thing I can do is I can see which of my students has done the presentation, and I can see what questions they're getting right. So I click on reports and then I can click on the respective slides, and it tells me that I have 3 students so far who have done the presentation, and it'll tell me their names. Okay. Now I noticed that students were skipping questions, and so I contacted Nearpod and I said, is there a way that I can not allow my students to skip questions, because the purpose is for them to do the questions? And so they showed me. I go to lesson settings, and down here you want to make sure that you require student submission so that they are not skipping the questions. So, and then there are other features on here that you can allow, but the main thing that I was looking for was this. So that is a basic overview of how you use Nearpod. I will give you just a few tips, like if you plan to use this. You can do an add-on in Google Slides. Here you see my Nearpod add-on. One thing that I learned from doing it this way is that a Google slide would allow you to put a video, for example, on a slide. However, when you transfer that to Nearpod, it just transfers it as a static slide, as an image. And so students won't be able to access the video if you add a video through Google Slides. So that's one thing I learned. I also learned that it's very important to test out the Nearpod presentation, because sometimes it doesn't, all of the videos don't play, or it doesn't flow the way I intended. And so I do a practice run before I post it onto D2L, just to verify. I do a practice run in the student mode, not the teacher mode, just to make sure that it functions well. So that's how you use Nearpod. Again, I like it because it creates interactive, engaging lessons. I have a way to see are my students learning the material that I've taught them, but also it's a way to move from passive learning to active learning, because they'll watch a video and then I'll have them actually exercise what it is that I just taught them. So I hope that you'll give it a try, and I hope that your students enjoy it. Thank you for watching this video, and best wishes as we go into another semester teaching online. Take care.